That's African. Everything else we chose. Some of us are raised Christian, but we leave the church. Some of us are raised Muslim, but we leave the masjid. But you can never leave being an African. No matter how much we may fry our hair, or cook our hair, or bleach our skin, or alter our body parts, we are African for the rest of our lives. So we believe in African identity. As Pan-Africanists, we also believe as Africa goes, so goes all African people. So from a Pan-Africanist perspective, one of the reasons why Africans in the diaspora have struggled so much to achieve full equality in places like the United States, Canada, and the UK is because we have divorced our political and economic struggle from the larger political and economic struggle of the mother continent of Africa. If the mother is weak, so will her scattered black children be weak. If the mother is strong, so will all of her children be strong. No matter where I go, the Chinese are in a position of power. The European Jew is in a position of power. The East Indian is in a position of power. But in the opposite vein, no matter where I go, the African is in a position of economic disempowerment and political irrelevancy. That's true in Philadelphia, it's true in Brooklyn, it's true in Texas, it's true in Birmingham, England, it's true in France, it's true in Austria, and it's even true in Africa, and that's a shame. Wherever you go in the world, there are four constants that describe the reality that African people face. What are the four constants? Number one, most African people and African children are worshiping the image of a Jesus that looks nothing like them. 99% of all pictures of Jesus in the black home, in the black church, in the black community has the European as our savior. That is a problem. Why? Coming from a psychological perspective, if you teach children that God is white, sooner or later when they become adults, they will assume that some of that godliness has attributed itself to all white people, and then it becomes more easy, much more convenient to accept second-class citizenship because if God is white, maybe that's why white people are in charge of everything. If God is white, maybe that's why most of the presidents have been white and all the Supreme Court justices, except two, have been white. Maybe I can understand racism if I look at it through the lens that God is white. But of course, we know historically Jesus was not white. He did not look like Barack Obama. He was blue, black, and purple. And how do we know this? Because every picture of Jesus Christ, every statue had him as a blue, black, purple African. In fact, the oldest picture of Jesus, which is still in existence, is in a museum in Ethiopia right now. He's blue, black, purple with nappy head, and so are all the 12 disciples as well. So we know what Jesus looked like. One of the greatest weapons that have been used against African people and all people of color, but I'm going to deal with African people because too often we get clumped into these labels of people of color where everybody else under the people of color umbrella get attention but black people. So I want to be clear, I'm unapologetically African. I am proud God made me an African. I don't want to be nobody else. But for those who are not African, I'm here to affirm you as well. If a white person makes a black person angry, it doesn't really mean much. But if a black person makes a white person angry, it can mean everything. Because her father might be the judge that my brother has to go before for his sentencing. Her cousin might be my daughter's principal. Her nephew might be the banker that my mother is trying to get a loan through to purchase her first home. So first of all, we got to understand that racism is a group system. It is not about individuals. There's no such thing as individually racist people. Groups are racist against other groups. Why am I saying that? Because a lot of times you'll get good white folks who will say, well, I'm not a racist. Well, it's not about you. It's about the group. And in my own personal opinion, I believe that all white people are racist. But I want to explain what that means, because I don't believe all white people are bigots. I believe all white people are racist. What do you mean all white people are racist, but they're not bigots? Bigotry is when you want to systematically destroy another group. Bigotry is the N-word. Bigotry is, I hate those people. Bigotry is that emotional, religious type of hate. The KKK hate, that's bigotry. But you can be a racist and not be a bigot. In order to be a racist, you only have to believe in one thing. And that is what? That you want your group to continue to control and dominate and monopolize resources, privileges, and opportunities. That's all white people need to believe in to be a racist. And as a student of history, although I'm a psychologist and educator, I'm also a political science major from undergrad, I'm not aware of any Europeans who have ever systematically fought to give black people an equal shot. Now, you may have fought to make the schools better. You may have fought to change the laws in the prisons. You may have fought to stop police brutality. But have you ever systematically fought to eliminate the causes of the police brutality? Have you ever fought to eliminate the causes of the miseducation? See, in America, we deal a lot with symptom management. They will manage the symptoms. Let's throw a couple $100 billion at police brutality. But police brutality ain't got to do with money. It's about power. Let's throw a couple $100 billion at the miseducation machine. But the miseducation machine is not really about money. It's about power. You want to spend $250,000 on the schools, but you don't want to do nothing about the fact that 96% of the teachers are white females, and that when they show up in the classroom with that black boy, everything they think of the black man comes out through their instructional energy. ADHD ain't nothing more than ain't no daddy at home disorder. And why do I say ADHD is nothing but ain't no daddy at home disorder? Because over 70% of black boys diagnosed with ADHD don't have their father at home. And why don't they have their father at home? Because after the U.S. government assassinated Dr. King on April the 4th of 1968, they decided to reorganize the black community so the black community could never surmount the type of opposition that our ancestors surmounted in the 1960s. So they said, let's cut the head off the Messiah, Dr. King, because we just cut the head off the Messiah, Malcolm, 3 years ago, and both of them were murdered with the FBI and CIA's complicity. We know this. We know Patrice Lumumba of the Congo was murdered upon the express order of President Eisenhower. We know this. We know his daughter was poisoned by the CIA. We know this too. So it's not just about oppressing black people in America. You've got to oppress black people in Africa, because you can't let the American African and the continental African unite. Because if the American African and the continental African unite, then everything upon which white privilege is built will crumble. They said we're going to reorganize black America. We're going to make sure we ain't got no more Messiahs, no more Fred Hamptons, and no more Malcolms, and no more Martins, and no more Meggers. We don't want no more of them. So how are we going to stop that from happening again? Because another one will rise. They said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go into the black community, and we're going to de-industrialize the black community. See, up until 1970, most black families were married. Somebody told a lie that slavery destroyed the black family. Don't you believe it? Slavery did not destroy the black family. Our ancestors remained married. Now, they did it behind the slave master's back. They jumped over the broom. They didn't let people know it, but we remained families. When do you see the rise of the single black female household? 1970. And why do you see the rise of the single black female household in 1970? Because the 1970s was the decade of the deindustrialization of the inner city. Two things to deindustrialize black America. Number one, we're going to take out all the factories that black men have used to feed their families and pay their bills from the 1920s all the way up to the 1970s. Y'all might not know this, young people, but you didn't always need a college degree to live a comfortable life. Go back and talk to your grandparents and your great-grandparents, black or white. Many of them came out of high school, went straight into the factory, and lived lives better than we live without 3 and 4 master's degrees. But America said we're going to do away with that. They shut them down on purpose to turn good-paying jobs into poverty pits. And then what else did they do? Because they didn't stop with getting rid of the jobs. Not only did they take out the employment, they made sure you wasn't prepared to work if the job came back. So they went into the high schools of Philadelphia and New York, Atlanta, LA, Houston, and Dallas, and they took out the industrial building trade programs. Once upon a time, you can learn how to be a plumber in high school, graduate with your license. Once upon a time, you can learn how to be an electrician. Once upon a time, you can learn how to be a welder. Once upon a time, you can learn how to be an auto mechanic right in your high school, graduate, take the state boards, and go work for someone or start your own business. They destroyed all that in the 1970s, which was just in time for the CIA to drop off the crack cocaine in 1980. Oh, yes. So you got all these unemployed black men around America, all these unemployed black men, and now the CIA comes with the crack. Boom! If I'm an unemployed black man, I got all this crack, I gotta make a decision. Either I'm gonna smoke it and deal with the fact I can't take care of my family. In other words, I'm gonna use the crack as a drug, as a sedative. Or I'm gonna get smart and economical and I'm gonna start bagging it up and selling the crack to take care of my family. America incarcerates more people than anyone else in the world, and most of those people are disproportionately black. And why is it not illegal? Because the 13th Amendment never outlawed slavery. The 13th Amendment didn't outlaw slavery. Did you read the language? It says slavery shall be illegal in these territories except for punishment for a crime. All they did was reinvent slavery through the penal system. And that's why the prison ain't nothing but a slave ship, except it sits on land, not water. And so then Bill Clinton comes, our first black president. Because he played the saxophone and smoked a little weed, Negroes went crazy. I want you to understand something. Politically speaking, nothing will change for Africans in America until you get off of both the Democratic Party plantation and the Republican Party plantation. They're playing games with us. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party, neither one of them takes black folks serious, and part of it is our fault. Because our vote is not organized. People don't vote for you, they're not black. Since when did black people become the personal property of the Democratic Party? I thought slavery was over. So then you get elected, and on your first day of office, you don't do nothing for black folks. You signed the transgender bill, which is okay. But where's the anti-police brutality bill? And then after the Atlanta Parliament massacres, you signed the anti-Asian hate bill. And that's okay because it was wrong for what happened to those Asian women in Atlanta. I don't have a problem with the transgender bill or the anti-Asian bill, but I do got a problem with the fact that the George Floyd police reform bill still ain't passed Congress. I got a problem with the fact that the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill still ain't passed Congress. But black folks, a lot of this is our fault. Because you have multiculturalized yourself out of existence. Black folks are the only people in this country who don't do anything by themselves. I remember in 2015, was it? South Carolina, Charleston, Dylan Roof walked into a church and murdered 9 Africans, including 6 mothers. How does a young white male, or any non-African, walk into a black house of worship, sit down, participate in Bible study, and nobody frisks him or asks him what he's doing there? Do you think you're going to get in the Jewish synagogue just because you feel like being in there? Do you think you're walking into a Chinese church just because you feel like you're in the mood for prayer? You're going to get questions. They want to know why you're here. Because although you might be a Christian like me, this is reserved for my people. And one thing black folks better get comfortable with is you better get comfortable speaking up for your people, because nobody's doing it. Congressional Black Caucus don't speak for black folks. They rewrote their constitution. And for the life of me, I don't know what them 59 Negroes in D.C. are doing for us. Except making us vote for white folks every 4 years. That's the only purpose I see of the Congressional Black Caucus. All due respect to Queen Mother Maxine Waters. I love her to death. But what good is the CBC? Y'all been around since 1971? What have y'all done for black folks? We don't see you for 4 years and then you come out to usher in another white man into the White House and tell us how good this slave master will be. Can you name a black church that's at the forefront of fighting for better schools? Can you name a black church that's at the forefront of fighting against gentrification? Can you name a black church that's at the forefront of fighting against economic apartheid in America? Can you name a black church that is at the forefront of fighting to change the criminal justice code in America? Gentrification, police genocide, and access to wealth. That's the 5-headed dragon that white America dropped off in black America's neighborhood. But you can't name a black church that's at the front of any of those battles. You know why? Because they so busy getting paid to stay out of them. I'm not interested in waiting for death in order to experience happiness. When I look around, I see rich whites, I see rich Chinese, I see Africa being robbed, making Europe filthy rich, in France filthy rich, in America filthy rich. So the way I see it, if the white man can get his heaven now, and if the Chinese can get his heaven now, and if the Europeans, you can get his heaven now, I want mine now, or I'm going to die trying. But nobody going to tell me I got to die to get a piece of what God left me. Do you realize the African was on this planet all by yourself for 200,000 years? Oh yes, modern man, Homo sapiens sapien is 300,000 years old. And who is the Homo sapiens sapien? It is the black man and woman. We are the original people of this earth. There was no Arab, there was no Chinese, there was no European. We were alone for 200,000 years. They come later. What bothers me the most about us as African people is we are a $2 trillion economy in this country.
We spend $2 billion on Air Jordans a year, $4 billion on liquor a year. Last year we bought twice the amount of Mercedes-Benz as white folk, but yet we have less than a third of the wealth of white people. Is Mercedes-Benz in the African DNA somewhere? Why are we so addicted to Mercedes? You know why we so addicted to Mercedes? Because when you study oppressed people, you will learn that whenever individuals cannot experience true freedom and equality, they like to surround themselves with the symbols of it. That's why you could go into any ghetto in America, in the ghetto, in poverty, and you'll find Cadillac trucks, you'll find Louis Vuitton bags, you'll find Gucci shoes. Why are the poorest people always with the most expensive things? Because I don't want to accept the reality that I'm in. So I'm going to create an imaginary reality where I got it going on. Self-hatred is second only to white supremacy as it relates to problems of African people. It's no different in Africa. It's no different in Africa. In South Africa, I got to navigate this Zulu Xhosa tribal thing. In Nigeria, I got to navigate this Igbo Yoruba tribal thing. In Senegal, I got to navigate this Wolos Mandingo tribal thing. In Kenya, I got to navigate this Kikuyu Maasai tribal thing. And let us understand something. The white man didn't just walk into Africa and start stealing resources. He manipulated the pre-existing tensions. Those tensions predate the arrival of the white man. All he did was exploit what was already there. And what helps to keep Africa backwards to this very day is the fact that they're still putting tribe against tribe, as opposed to us as Africans practicing a Pan-Africanist approach to political economic empowerment, stepping back and say, listen, I'm Igbo, he's Zulu, but he's better for that than I am. I'm Kikuyu, they Maasai, but they better than I am. Until we get to the point where we can choose that African who's best for the role, we'll never be free. You dig up any skeleton, there's no such thing as an Igbo skeleton. You can't tell an Igbo skeleton from a Yoruba or a Hausa skeleton. You can't tell a Zulu skeleton from a Swazi or a Xhosa skeleton. But you can tell an African skeleton from a European one. We gotta get back to being one family. If we don't learn how to stand together, we're gonna perish as fools, because you got people in this world who think they can get rid of you. They're even talking about African people being a minority in certain African countries. How can you be a minority in your country? So many of our ancestors on the mother continent died to get the white man out. And here we are in the last 10 years rolling out a red carpet for Red China. Everywhere I go, I see the Chinese owning everything. In Nigeria, they dominate the poultry market. In Jamaica, the president sold them the port of Jamaica. How do you sell the national port to another race? And if you think getting the white man out of Africa is a problem, it's going to be 50 times work to get the Chinese man out. See, the European is a numerical minority globally, not the Chinese. The only race that outnumber the Chinese is the African, but on paper, we don't even look like we outnumber him, because too many of us want to be something other than African. Every other day, I'm talking to African Americans who want to be Native Americans all of a sudden. I'm half Choctaw, I'm half Seminole. Won't even let you near a casino. You want to be Native American. That's how much we hate ourselves. A black person found out they got a little bit of white man in them, act like they hit the lottery. My great-grandmother was Irish. One of the things that I'm most known for in terms of controversy is the fact that I don't support interracial marriages. But I want you to understand why I don't support them. It's not because I think the white woman is less than the black man, and it's not because I think the white man is less than the black woman. The reason I don't support black men or women marrying outside of the race is because marriage is a financial institution. And under most circumstances, women live longer than men. So if Dr. Umar marries a white woman, when I die, she will inherit my estate. When he dies, she never invests that back in our community. So my question for black men who want to marry outside the race so much, why do you want to steal from your own and freely give to another group? Haven't they stolen enough already? It's not about hating nobody. It's about looking out for yourself. I would have no problem if the white same way if he went through what I went through. So white women in the audience, I don't hate you, I don't dislike you. I'm not going to date you because my loyalty is to the black woman. And I say that for the 70s, they killed the jobs. 80s, they dropped off the crack. 90s, the Bill Clinton crime bill. Year 2000, George Bush systematically destroyed the effectiveness of the black church. And then Barack Obama, next weapon of mass destruction. I'm the only scholar I know who went public in 2008 and said if that man becomes president, black people will be worse off after he gets out. Politics is a science. Normally when a black person gets elected to anything, black people do worse. And I've already explained to you why. Because we don't finance our own candidates, and most of our candidates are indebted to who? White racist Republicans and white racist Democrats for their financing and their votes. I knew we would be worse off. What did Barack Obama do that you think is so bad, Dr. Umar Johnson? Well, number one, he raised the bounty on Queen Mother Assata Shakur's head, which I thought was absolutely repulsive for a black man to do, taking her bounty from $1 million up to $2 million, despite the fact nobody proved that she ever murdered anybody on that New York highway back in the 1970s. So a black man makes a black woman the most wanted fugitive in America. Unacceptable. Cut money from the HBCUs, unacceptable. Refused to exonerate the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey from the fraudulent charges J. Edgar Hoover put on him 100 years ago. Absolutely unacceptable. Refused to discuss reparations for African people. Absolutely unacceptable, President Obama. But the biggest thing he did that I can't forgive him for is he took everything my ancestors fought for and refused to apply it to the people who died for it. Instead, you gave my civil rights over to the LGBTQ. And you gave my civil rights over to the feminist movement. And you gave my civil rights over to the Mexicans and to them and to this and to that. And that's okay if you want to make sure other groups get their equal treatment. But if my people died for it, my people should eat first. And we still haven't eaten yet. Barack Obama turned his back on black folks and looked out for everybody but us. But guess what? I blame you more than him. Because when Trayvon got murdered and he didn't do nothing about it, you continue to support him. That's right. Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Sandra Bland, and all of them was not on Obama's watch. When we do business with the white power structure, we can't care about whether we like them personally or not. This is a business deal. How many of you have done business with people you didn't like, but you did it because the ends were mutually beneficial? We need to sit down with the Democrats and the Republicans and say, hey, we got 50 million votes in this country. What are you willing to give us for those 50 million? And if you renege on the agreement, you do not get those 50 million in that election. That's all you got to do. But the problem is the Democratic Negro gatekeepers, their job is to make sure black folks just go out and blindly vote every election. They're about to do it this Thursday. Election, well, was election day today?
Yes, today.
Today. Just go vote. And you say vote for what? It don't matter, just vote. Can I vote away police genocide? No. But vote anyway. What about schools? Can I vote to make the schools better? Can I vote away racism? Can I vote away gentrification? Can I vote for my slice of the economic pie that my ancestors built? No. So what am I voting for? Because your ancestors died for it. Well, guess what, brothers and sisters? I'm here to tell you something. That's a lie. My ancestors didn't die for me to vote. My ancestors died for freedom and equality. Voting was the tactic that they used at their time that they felt was most likely to deliver the freedom and the equality. They didn't die for me to vote. Stop confusing goals with tactics. In this day and time, the tactics need to change. I'm not anti-vote, but I'm anti-stupidity. And until we organize the black vote, it'll never work for us. Critical race theory now. This critical race theory, this approach to studying systemically and scientifically the role of race in American institutions. Nothing wrong with that. But here's what the critical race theorists don't get, and I support them. If you think America is going to co-sign any academic approach, any pedagogy that says we're going to start teaching white kids that racism made their country great, you can forget it. Because America does not function on truth. America, like most countries now, they're not alone. America is not alone. They're the worst ones, but they're not alone. America loves to play the role of moral cop of the globe.
That's right.
America is the moral police. So whenever somebody does something wrong, America is the first one to tell them that is wrong. That is not humanitarian. How are you going to be the moral cops when your children are being taught in school every day that the dehumanization of African people is the central causative factor to the power that your nation has today? They're not going to allow it. Critical race theory exposes the hypocrisy and contradiction of America as the state. That's why it'll never work. See, one of the privileges that white people have, and all white people have, I don't care if you poor white or rich white, you all got it. You do not have to be accountable for what your ancestors did to put black people in our current political reality. You do not have to answer for it. That's one of the privileges of being white. Yes, they did it to you, but we don't have to answer for it. And white folks love to tell me this. Dr. Johnson, I hear you. They had nothing. They were dead and broke, almost as poor as yours. At no time did we ever own a slave. And I say that may be true. But now I have another question for you, liberal white person. Your ancestors never owned slaves. Can you show me how they never benefited from slavery, though? Because God made